Welcome to Essential C.S. Lewis on YouTube, a feature of EssentialCSLewis.com. I'm William O'Flaherty. The following is the second of two talks by C. Ben Mitchell, given in April 2026 at the Inklings Weekend in Montreat. The title of this second talk is Resisting a Post-Human Future. Unfortunately, due to an unforeseen technical issue, the audio quality is not as good as hoped for.
Presume to offer solutions, but I do have recommendations. We're going to get there because I don't like to go to meetings about anything where we all just talk about ain't it bad and don't we all know it. So I want us to get beyond that. And I promised today that we talk a little bit about where we're going and how we respond to the direction we're going. The problem is, of course, that making predictions is difficult. And if a physicist is too highfalutin for us, Yogi Berra said the same thing. It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. But I do have some predictions that some are offering about the future of our technological society. One is from Yuval Harari, who is at Hebrew University in Jerusalem and has published New York Times bestseller in his history of the human species, Sapiens, and then his follow-up version, volume to that, Homo Deus, is a new volume or a newer volume called Nexus. But in Homo Deus, he says this. Now, he's a historian who writes about the future. Wrap your mind around that first. In the early 21st century, the train of progress is again pulling out of the station, and this will probably be the last train ever to leave the station called Homo sapiens, our species. Those who miss this train will never get a second chance. In order to get a seat on it, you'll need to understand 21st century technology, and in particular, the powers of biotechnology, think genetics and other biotech, and computer algorithms, think artificial intelligence. These powers, biotech, AI, are far more potent than steam and telegraph, and they will not be used mainly for the production of food, textiles, vehicles, and weapons. The main products of the 21st century will be bodies, brains, and minds, and the gap between those who know how to engineer bodies and brains and those who do not will be wider than the gap between Dickens, Britain, and Mahdi's Sudan. Indeed, it will be bigger than the gap between sapiens and Neanderthals. In the 21st century, those who ride the train of progress will acquire divine abilities of creation and destruction. And those left behind will face extinction. That's quite a claim. He goes on. Homo sapiens is likely, how are we going to get there? Homo sapiens is likely to upgrade itself, the species, to upgrade itself step by step, merging with robots and computers in the process, while our descendants look back and realize they're no longer the kind of animal that wrote the Bible, built the Great Wall of China, and laughed at Charlie Chaplin's antics. This will not happen in a day or a year. Indeed, it's already happening. Right now, through innumerable mundane actions. Every day, millions of people decide to grant their smartphone a bit more control over their lives, or try a new and more effective antidepressant drug. In the pursuit of health, happiness, and power, humans will gradually change first one of their features and then another until they will no longer be human. So he's predicting a kind of incrementalism that is grounded in emerging technologies in biotech and artificial intelligence, in ways that, as we alluded yesterday, in ways that are almost imperceptible because they happen so very gradually and with such ease in which we are inhabiting. Another prophet of the future is Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil is an inventor, philanthropist. You would see in some worship centers or other musical venues a Kurzweil keyboard, an instrumental keyboard. He also invented the TTY machine. He received National Science Medal during the Clinton years, and he wrote a book a number of years ago called The Singularity is Near, in which he predicted that in the future, when human capacity and speed, the human brain's capacity and speed is matched by the computer capacity and speed, memory and speed, we would be able to create a new species, a cyborg kind of species, merging with computers. And last year he published The Singularity is Nearer, notice his subtitle, When We Merge with AI. And he says the digital revolution in biotech will cure diseases and meaningfully extend people's healthy lives. At the same time, though, many workers will feel the sting of economic disruption, and all of us will face risks from accidental or deliberate misuse of these new capabilities. During the 2030s, self-improving AI and maturing nanotech will unite humans, that should be unite, will unite humans and our machine creations as never before, heightening both the promise and peril even further. If we can meet the scientific, ethical, social, and political challenges posed by these advances by 2045, not that far away, we will transform life on Earth profoundly for the better, which is the singularity. Yet if we fail, our very survival is in question. And this is the map of the singularity. As human intellect continues to evolve step by step, and as our technology evolves much more rapidly, we'll find a place where the machine intelligence and the human intellect can merge together, and we become a new species. We are transhuman on our way to being post-human. And Kurzweil is one of the prophets of post-humanity. Transhumanism is a worldview, if you will. It's a philosophy, and this is from the Transhumanist Declaration. You heard our speaker last night mention transhumanism. If you don't know what it is a cultural and intellectual movement that affirms the possibility of fundamentally improving the human condition through applied reason and a variety of technologies like genetic technology and artificial intelligence, as we've been saying. And you don't have to be a transhumanist. Let me put it this way. You don't have to be a member of the transhumanist society to be a transhumanist. You just have to live in this part of the 21st century, by and large, because the philosopher of transhumanism, a fellow named Nick Bostrom, who has been in Oxford until recently. He was at Harris Mansfield College and the Future of Humanity Institute. Nick Bostrom says that our post-human future will lead us to much longer and healthier lives, greater subjective well-being, enhanced cognitive capacities, notice the language, unlimited opportunity for personal growth beyond our current biological limits, and better relationships and unbounded potential for spiritual, moral, intellectual development. Who wouldn't want that? So the question is, first, is it true? And secondly, what are the means to achieve that kind of future? So I sat down with Nick on a couple of occasions. One, there were 35 scholars of us at Wycliffe Hall in Oxford on a Templeton grant, and I hosted Nick, and we interviewed Nick about the post-human future. And I said, but Nick, we all know that from time to time, at least, technologies tend to either fail or, even worse, they bite back. And he said, are you worried about the future and about the potential for causing human harm? And Nick paused for a moment, and he said, well, yes, we could annihilate the entire species. And so, I'm sure not because I want to be sure that you understand, I'm not saying because of that line of questioning that day, but Nick began to explore, as a side project, global catastrophic risks. What might it look like if our technology doesn't work for our benefit, but ends up causing harm? And following that volume, he published a volume on artificial intelligence or superintelligence, the notion that one day artificial intelligence would become conscious, a conscious being of some sort, an entity of some sort, and that it would actually become, artificial intelligence would actually become smarter than human beings. It may not be a high bar, but but nevertheless, that we might become smarter than human beings. And in that book, there's quite a bit of worry, actually, about the way the technology could actually cause harm. It's worth exploring, and I appreciate Nick considering it, because he's not the last one to consider it. This is Jeffrey Hinton, one of the pioneers of AI, who said this last year, I have to revise my terrible prediction. At one time I said that AI has the risk of ending our humanity by about a 30% chance, and he said I've had to revise it down. Now it's only about 10 to 20 that AI could go wrong and cause harm to our species. So what do we do? How do we move forward with those kinds of portents on the other side of the hype that we constantly hear? And I'm not giving you the hype on purpose. The hype that we constantly hear about how AI is going to revolutionize our society. Dennis Hasidis, who is Google Mind, said that we'll solve the problem of intelligence, and then AI will solve all the other problems, and we'll live lives of leisure. Well, that's one vision of the future, but there might be problems along the way, including catastrophic problems. Well, I want to challenge us this morning to think, and I know you are, so I'm only trying to encourage you to continue to do so, to think about our adoption of technologies. Obviously, I'm not a Luddite in the sense that we use that term to shut down conversation. I'm using a computer, using PowerPoint, with a microphone, under lights, in an environmentally controlled setting. So I'm not a Luddite, but I think that we should all think carefully and critically about our adoptionism with respect to technology, because as Quentin Schultz has reminded us, North Americans are largely unreflective, voracious consumers of cyber novelty and informational trivia. We naively have convinced ourselves that every new innovation will automatically improve society and make us better people regardless of how we use them. Progress through technology was part of the kind of air and I breathe as a child and young adult, and in the culture in which we live. We're going to enter the new utopia through science and through technology, and we're still being promised that kind of utopia. This time, a post-human. We don't need these incarnate bodies to experience that. We can jettison the body and experience utopia in a different way. More about that in a second. And here's the incremental approach. We are adopters of these cyber novelties, these digital innovations, and we do so without reflecting on them. We stand in long lines around the Apple store to get the latest new shiny digital device. And now, the average time spent on digital media for someone living in the U.S. is 8.5 hours. That's a lengthy part of our day spent just on digital media. And of course, many have to do that because of their jobs. We get that. But it's not just use of digital media for jobs. We now carry our digital media with us on our smartphones, spending 5.5 hours a day on a mobile device every day. day. Some of us checking our phones 96 times a day or once every 10 minutes, spending enormous amounts of money on our digital technology, and some of us are actually apparently getting 100 text messages on average per day. On average per day. So that means some of us are getting more, some of us are getting a lot more than 100 a day. What does that mean? If technology has a formative influence on us, we form our technologies, they form us. If it has a formative influence on us, what are we being formed to become? How are we being formed? Our practices, our habits are formative. How do I know that? Well, just take, for example, somebody going, a baseball player going to the batting cage and hitting the ball 100 times. Why does the baseball or softball player do that? It's not because he or she doesn't understand the basic physics of overcoming the inertia of the ball with the bat. It is because through those practices of hitting that ball over and over again, that athlete is developing muscle memory. Those practices develop muscle memory. Our application and use, adoption, and practices with digital technologies and other technologies, for that matter, create both intellectual muscle memory and also emotional muscle memory, as it were. They are forming us in certain ways, and I'm not suggesting they're all bad ways. I am saying that they are forming us and have formed us, and that's exactly what Harari and others are pointing to when they say we're going to change our species gradually by steps, one after the other. Our current technology, says Christine Rosen, and I recommend this book to you highly, The Extinction of Experience. Our current technologies, both small scale and large scale, persuade us that we can opt out of bodily limitations in ways that the invention of the telegraph, telephone, automobile, and jet plane didn't. The experience of being there, being present, being somewhere, no longer means being together physically. It means interacting with limitless numbers of avatars or bots or other digital interlocutors who their creators insist, who their creators insist are superior to old-fashioned face-to-face interaction. We've created technologies that so effectively extend our senses, we've started mistrusting the signal our own physical bodies give us in areas of life that used to be off limits to technical mediation and manipulation are now saturated by it, and we are changed. Now let me give you a little a little technological whack-a-mole, all right? So what does she mean? Give us some examples of what you mean by these creators suggesting that the technology is superior to our old-fashioned face-to-face interactions. Well, how about Tinder, a dating site? Tinder is how people meet. It's real life, but better. It's better than real life. It's better than meeting face-to-face over a coffee. Or, how about this? This is a vest that MIT students have designed that whenever you press the like button on your friend's Facebook page, it gives you a hug. Or did you know that on YouTube there is an entire culture of watching people unbox things they've gotten in the mail? And this is about how you can engage your audience by creating unboxing videos. We are so bored that we are entertained by watching people strip the tape off the box and emerge with whatever item they've consumed from Amazon. Or how about these? The reaction videos. So this is now watching a video of somebody doing something terrible or tragic, like America's Home videos used to be on television, and then watching the reaction of the person watching the video. So we're watching people watching. And this is the thing. Or this. This is Royal Caribbean's offering, with an upcharge, of course, of your virtual balcony if you have a room on your ship that is an internal room. And so for this upcharge, you can have an 80-inch high-definition screen that will show you the horizon from your cruise ship as if you were there. And how do you know that they say that it is real time, but how do you know? There's a lot of trust that you have to put in both of them and the technology. We now have AI companions. People are developing relationships with their avatars and their chatbots. Nancy read me a story this morning that was in the Wall Street Journal of a man who developed a relationship with a chatbot and then divorced his wife and committed suicide because that's how the chatbot kind of led him along. It's not just adults who may have some kind of mental or emotional challenges, if you will. 72% of teens have used AI for companionship, just to have a friend who's close by and non-judgmental. Because remember, the AI is sycophantic. It's always going to tell you what you want to know. It's never what you want to hear. It's never going to tell you the real story. It's going to tell you what it wants you to believe. And so it's going to become a companion who never challenges you. And Christine Rosen points out that we are in the adoption of these technologies. Many of these technologies, we're losing basic skills that not only have been part of our civilization for millennia, but also have cognitive impact on our brains. They actually wire our brains in certain ways. And we know from studies that have been done, there is a distinct difference between learning through handwritten note-taking and learning through taking notes on a keyboard or just listening to someone speak. There is a different set of connections that are made in the brain and different levels of memory that are associated with it. And so now we are giving children devices in their classrooms and avoiding them having to do the hard work, or us doing the hard work of teaching them how to write. And we are suffering from it. And there's teachers here today who we discussed that after the first session, who are facing those same kinds of challenges. This one's the most horrific image that I will show you. This Fisher-Price activity seat was designed to mount an iPad above this infant, presumably for educational purposes, but I suspect more realistically as a digital babysitter. And the brain of every child and adult, by the way, is wired in certain ways by the images that we watch. This particular device was on, for instance, it was available on Amazon and other outlets for a long time. It's harder to find now, but you can still find this device to help a child develop a screen world. All the while, we know that the best way to help babies develop speech and other cognitive skills, says Mary Aiken, a child psychologist, is through human interaction. That's the best way to do it. And time again, she says, videos and television shows have been shown to be ineffective in learning prior to the age of 2. Nevertheless, because they tap into our technological optimism, it's a new technology, it's got to lead us into a better future. Devices like the Activity Seat tempt parents to think digital media may be a helpful tool in teaching babies to learn, but it's just the opposite. No wonder we are an anxious generation. We are the most connected generation that's ever lived on the face of the earth, and the most lonely. It's hard to wrap our minds around. The most connected and most lonely. But it's true. It's true. Watch every restaurant has a table full of people. They're all on their phones instead of talking with one another. Our families, our churches. I mentioned Union yesterday, Union University, where I taught and where Hal taught, Mary Ann taught. And the revelation that we now had the whole campus area now covered by Wi-Fi. Well, it gets worse than that. Worse in the sense that shouldn't there be somewhere you can disconnect? But it gets worse than that because for a while the culture was changing, and before college chapel each day, there was a request for all the students to turn their phones off until the preacher got up to preach and said, turn in your Bibles or your digital device to Psalm 8. And as soon as they turned on their digital device, it was over. And even more stunningly in my mind, now to get in your dorm, you have to have a smartphone. You have to show, the QR type code, whatever the technology is, to get in your dorm. So you can't exist. You can get a card. You can get the special card, and you can go through whatever the hoops are. We have some union students here. You can go through whatever the hoops are not to do that. But then, you're the weirdo on the block who doesn't use a smartphone. But there's hope. Because these technologies are going to help us care. They're going to help us care for those who don't receive human care now. We'll have Pero, that's the little seal pup on the top right, who's going to care for our elderly, and he's being used, and he or she, I'm not sure what gender Pero is, but he or she is being used in senior care or nursing homes regularly, and especially those who have some cognitive loss are being convinced that this is their pet. Or we have nursing robots that are going to take care of patients in the hospital, and eventually we'll have full-size robots or so-called care bots that are going to take care of us and all of our needs. And not only seniors, but all of us will have the opportunity to have an AI confession. And we can confess to our AI avatar priest and receive absolution because we'll have our Catholic AI. Interestingly enough, and to his credit, the Pope has asked priests not to use AI in constructing their sermons. I've not heard any evangelical say that. Not to a group of people. Of course, we evangelicals don't have a pope, but well, we don't have an official pope. We have lots of popes, but not an official pope. And then this today. I saw this today in the news headline. I had to show it. Now for $1.99, you can have a chat with an AI avatar Jesus. I don't even understand that. $1.99 to talk to an AR avatar Jesus. I just can't quite get there. But here's what one philosopher says in this wonderful and important book, A Web of Our Own Making. I think I quoted it to yesterday. Look, if we are spending most of our waking hours on digital devices, if we reach out upon them on waking only to set them down during sleeping, if this technology is our single most important means for connecting to others and understanding what we do, if it's recasting our notions of what human beings are for, then it doesn't make any difference whether the device is physically implanted in our retina or cortex. Why should we worry about, I won't touch William's device here. He's got a recording device here. But why should we worry about losing our device or dropping it in the water? Why not just have it implanted and be done with it? But then the body is such a difficult thing. It's slowly, I don't know whether you know this yet or not, but it's slowly decaying and going away. The body is declining in its capacity. So why be restricted to this body when we could upload our consciousness, digitize what's going on in our brains, and upload our consciousness to the vast nexus, the matrix, if you will, and have eternal life. And that's the promise. You remember what Harari said? We'll have divine capabilities of creation. We're entering the stage of what, I recommend this book as well, by a information technologist and a Lutheran priest. Are we all cyborgs? We're entering this generation of cyborg creep. Digital technologies are much more than tools. They're reality-mediating machines or mechanisms, and they're woven into the warp and woof of our lives so that we don't even realize sometimes that we are participating in them. And so there's a blurring of the lines between the digital and the real. You can read more about that in that book. It's a really helpful compendium of reflection on technology. So one of my favorite authors is Wendell Berry. If you haven't read Wendell Berry, Kentucky farmer, poet, essayist, activist, Wendell Berry says that he can imagine a time when the great division of the world will be between the people who wish to live as creatures and those who wish to live as machines. When he wrote that in 1990, I think people thought he was crazy. I think some people still think he's crazy, but that's all a different discussion. But this is Lewis. This is the way Lewis thought in Abolition of Man about the future. We may hear more about that before the day is over. So Berry published in 1987 a famous article in Harper's Magazine, answering the question why he won't buy a computer to write. He still writes by hand, still writes by pencil every day. But he said, here are my reasons, here are my criteria for adopting any new technology. It has to be cheaper than the one it replaces, at least as small in scale as the one it replaces, do work that is clearly and demonstrably better than the one it replaces, not just more, better. Use less energy than the one it replaces, reparable by a person of ordinary intelligence, purchasable and repairable locally, and it should not destroy existing goods, including family and community. Now, I wouldn't dare recommend to you or suggest to you that you must adopt Wendell Berry's criteria. What I will challenge us all to do is answer the question, what are our criteria for adopting new technologies? Do we have any? Could we articulate for us, for our families, for our communities, what our criteria are for technological adoption and use? Well, there are people who do this all the time. And I'm not recommending that we become Amish. I am suggesting that the Amish have something right, at least, because the Amish, by the way, are not Luddites. They don't dig their crops with their bare hands. They use technologies. But as Cal Newport, and you should know Cal Newport's work, as Cal Newport points out, the Amish have a form of life, a way in which they, in their communities, envision inhabiting the world. And as new technologies come online, they ask themselves the question, will this new technology will this new technology contribute to our form of life, or will it distract from or even deconstruct and destroy our form of life? And they go through this kind of calculus, if you will, this mental calculus, as they think about the adoption of new technologies. And Newport says they've got something right. They prioritize the benefits generated by acting intentionally about technology over the benefits lost from the technologies they decide not to use. Their gamble is that intention trumps convenience, and it's a bet that seems to be paying off. The doomer optimists I mentioned the other day, trying to do the same kind of thing. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but I'll just say, a reminder, a couple of things. One, technologies are not value neutral. The notion that the technology is only a tool that has good use and bad use is not true. Every technology has a certain set of values that underwrite both its development and its use. And it is not morally neutral, it is morally freighted. It doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's morally freighted. It has with it certain values that underwrite its use. And these technologies, especially digital technologies, are polypotent, so they have actions and reactions that occur in multiple ways. So our connectivity, your refrigerator is now connected to the Internet of Things, and will tell you when things spoil, when they go off. Technologies are co-shaped by their use. They are shaping us, we are shaping them. There is this co-shaping relationship that goes on. Technologies embed and reflect their culture's origin and use. I remember when my dean at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, who grew up in Côte d'Ivoire, said that people in his culture called this God on the wrist. Because you guys only care about time. God on the wrist. God on the wrist. So it's shaped by our culture and our cultural expectations. Responsible technological development requires ethical reflection, and I would argue, we're not having enough ethical reflection about emerging technologies like AI. It's more than just compliance, and we have to grapple with what's called the wicked problem. That is, what if the technology actually backfires and causes harm? So I told you I wouldn't leave you with ain't it bad and don't we all know it. So Robin Phillips says, let's ask some questions. Instead of setting out a set of rules that we could say, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that, and the rules being outdated or obsolete by the emergence of the very next technology or the next evolution of the technology in 5 months or 5 years, why don't we ask ourselves some questions about technology? Like, how will this technology impact our social relationships? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Or is it something that we need to discipline ourselves to use well and not to use poorly? Is it making our life easier in one way and yet making it more difficult in others? What are the trade-offs? And every technology has a trade-off of some sort. What are the trade-offs of the use of AI in certain areas? Look, I would be the first to say that the early development of AI in radiology seems to be very promising. The AI tools can examine images, many more images than the average radiologist can in maybe years, and can do so very quickly and pick up minute changes in the images and help with diagnosis and potentially treatment. But it's not without its problems, and there's still the problem of confabulation. There's still the problem of the AI making mistakes, and so the physician still has to be on her game. She has to be an expert in her field if she's going to trust what she sees in those images. What spiritual, emotional, aesthetic, psychological, neurobiological, or metaphysical implications might this technology bring in its wake? How is it going to change us or change our understanding of our relationship to God, to the world, to our neighbors? what are the implications of this technology for the way we love one another and love the God who made us? Does it benefit the technology? Does it benefit one segment of the population and involve a corresponding cost for another segment? I spend a lot of time on this, but are we close to a culture in which we have a stratification of the technological haves and the technological have-nots? Because technology ain't cheap, right? And then finally, does this technology satisfy felt needs while ignoring objective needs? Does a companion AI meet a felt need? No question. But does it really meet an objective need of relationship and friendship that we were made for? We were made to be in relationship. So what do? Quickly resist the notion that efficiency is the summum bonum. I mentioned that yesterday. Reject uncritical consumeristic adoption of digital technologies. Discern the form of life you desire. You in your community, your church, your families, your others need to talk about what kind of life do we want to live. We had a conference at our church last year. We had one of the pastors who was there said he remembered growing up in a day where they had one phone in the house on the wall. And he said he's decided that that's how he's going to live, but he doesn't have a phone on the wall. When he comes in every day, he puts his smartphone on a shelf, and if he needs to make a phone call, he gets up and goes to the smartphone, and if he receives a phone call, he gets up and goes to the smartphone, but he doesn't have it by his chair, so he's doom scrolling all night long. I thought that was a wise discipline. Treat it like a tool, not like a companion. Adjust your technological use around those, that notion of the form of life, and then have desires that are formed by the good news of the incarnate Christ and love of neighbor. How do I express neighbor love in a world of artificial intelligence? And remember that our embodied humanity is a gift from God, not a curse. And resist excarnation. You know what excarnation is? Of course, it's the opposite of incarnation. But excarnation is actually the word that's used when you desiccate bones for use in a museum. You dry them out, you get rid of all the tissue, all the organic material except for the bones, and you dry them out, and that's called excarnation. We're living increasingly excarnate lives. Finally, I'll let you write these down. I found these resources really helpful. Futurism is a news site that follows developments in technology news, especially AI. And the Guardian News, the Guardian newspaper in England is what would have been, it is now still, but we would have called it a broadsheet. It's a newspaper. And some of us are old enough to explain to others of you what a newspaper is. But the tech section in the Guardian website is almost every day focused on something related to AI or AI-related developments. Front Porch Republic, Jeff Bilbrough and his colleagues are doing a wonderful job of providing short, helpful reflections on how to create and how to live into a form of life that is truly human, and how to resist the ill effects of technologies. I recommend Front Porch Republic. New Atlantis is a technology journal. That's what they do, housed in Washington, D.C., and it's worth seeing. And then this one just came online last week. So go to it. This is a group of people who are thinking about how we not only live, but how we create policy that will help shape the beneficial uses of AI and avoid the detrimental, deleterious effects of artificial intelligence. BetterFutureAI.org. So hope that's going to be helpful to you, and you may have other sources that you'll want to recommend to one another over coffee. If this were a classroom setting, I would now pause and we'd have a discussion about what your counsel for Sarah would be. But it's not a classroom setting, so thank you.
Thanks for watching Essential C.S. Lewis on YouTube. a feature of EssentialCSLewis.com. I'm William O'Flaherty. I also have a YouTube channel called Adult Autism with William, where I share about only learning I was autistic at the age of 60, along with understanding level 1 autism from the perspective of an adult. The channel has also interviews with other autistic adults. At EssentialCSLewis.com, you can find a variety of material, including various interviews with authors related to Lewis and sometime live recordings. Please consider liking, sharing this video, and subscribing to this channel. Finally, please follow the link in the description to learn about my latest book, the Screwtape Letters Handbook. Also, there will be a link to my other book from 2018, The Misquotable C.S. Lewis. Thanks again for watching.